All right, hello y'all. Sorry I'm not here today. I just wasn't feeling very good, so I had to go home. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the notes for today and also working on the worksheet. Let me explain the things that you picked up. When you came in, you picked up the notes that are on the yellow paper. You picked up the assignment that goes with them. It says geometric mean at the top. It's on the screen. And then you also picked up the review for our test, which is on Thursday. You need to look over the review tonight, but don't complete all of the review because we're going to work on it in class tomorrow. Okay, so look over it and just find questions that you're not sure about so we can work on those together tomorrow. So what we're going to do right now is go over our notes, and this is the last new thing that's going to be on our test. So we'll start here. The first thing that we got to learn about is the geometric mean. Okay, so the geometric mean between two numbers a and b is the positive number x, where a over x is equal to x over b. So you get x is the square root of a times b. And the reason for that, if you do your cross products, you have x times x, which is x squared, and that's equal to a times b. Now we don't want x squared, we just want x. So we have to take the square root of both sides. So the square root of x squared is just x, and the square root of ab is the square root of ab, because there's nothing being squared there. So that's what you get. All right, so geometric mean for 10 and 20. So we'll call 10 our a and 20 our b. So we put 10 over x, and that's going to be equal to x over 20. And so now you're going to have to do your cross products. So we have x times x, which is x squared, and then you have 10 times 20, which is 200. So x squared is equal to 200. So now we have to do the square root, because again, we just want x. So x is equal to the square root of 200. And now we're going to review a little bit how we simplify these square roots. So 200, if you go on your calculator, do menu 2 and then 3, and put in 200, you get 2 cubed times 5 squared. So what I want you to do now is write this out. 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2, and 5 squared is 5 times 5. And so now we're going to go through and we're going to circle the pairs that we see. So here's a pair of 2's, and here's a pair of 5's. Anything that is in a pair, that number gets pulled out of the square root. So the square root of 200 is equal to, well, what do we have in a pair? A 2 multiplied by, what's our other pair? A 5. And then we have this one lone 2. He goes back in the square root. So now you just multiply these in front. So 2 times 5 is 10, and it's square roots of 2. Now you can also, I also want you to get this as a decimal form. So we have x is equal to the square root of 200, which we said is 10 square roots of 2. Now I want you to go in your calculator, do Control and then the x squared button, and find the actual square root of 200. And you get 14.1421. We're going to round this to the nearest tenth. So in order to do that, we look at the hundredths place. So there is a 4 in the hundredths place here. Remember, 4 below, it just stays. So it's going to be 14.1 to the nearest tenth. So that would be your x, either 10 square roots of 2 or 14.1. Now the next one. Find the geometric mean for 5 and 10. So we have 5 over x and x over 10. Do your cross products. X squared is equal to 50, because that's 5 times 10. So square root. So x is the square root of 50. And when you factor that, remember menu 2, 3, you will get 2 times 5 squared. So that's 2 times 5 times 5. So there's only one pair here, so it's only the 5 that gets pulled out. So it's 5 square roots of 2. And then let's actually find the decimal of it. So take the square root of 50 in your calculator, and you'll get the square root of 50 is 7.07107. Okay, look at your hundreds place. That's the second number. It's a 7, so it's going to make the 0 round up, so it'll make it round to 7.1. So that's what your x is. Okay, now we're going to go over here to our rule, our first rule about these geometric means with right triangles. Now these only apply to right triangles. So the first rule is called the heartbeat rule. And you're going to see why it's called that because we're going to make a little drawing. So it says the length of the altitude, so right here, this is your altitude in the middle, to the hypotenuse of a right triangle, so the length of the altitude, is the geometric mean of the lengths of the segments of the hypotenuse. So basically all that's saying is that your hypotenuse over here, okay, AB, is being cut into two parts by the altitude. You got the first part here, which they're calling one leg. You have the second part here, which is the second leg. So we're going to call this first part leg 1 and the second part leg 2. Now we call this the heartbeat method because if you connect the information that you have or what you're finding, so your altitude, your leg 1 and your leg 2, if you draw it, we'll make a spike here, okay, because we're going up to the altitude. It looks like the heartbeat on an EKG machine. So whenever they're measuring someone's heart rate, you see the little spikes. So now you've got this formula down here. It's leg 1, so make sure you put that, over the altitude is equal to the altitude over leg 2. So that's all you got to do. The two legs are on a diagonal from each other. The altitude is on a diagonal. So we'll do an example. What is the value of z? Well, z is our altitude. So we're going to use the heartbeat rule. So we have leg 1 and then leg 2, which is 9. Okay, so we have leg 1, so that's 3 over z, which is equal to the altitude again, so that's z over leg 2, which is 9. So now we do our cross products just like we did before. So z squared is equal to 27 because that's 9 times 3. So take the square roots. So z is equal to the square root of 27. And so if you factor 27, you get 3 cubed, which is 3 times 3 times 3. There's only one pair of 3's. So 1 3 gets pulled out, the lone one stays in. And then if you actually do the square root of 27 in your calculator, you get 5.19615. And so that 5.19, we look at the 9, it's going to make that one round up. So it's 5.2. So that is z. All right, so let's do our next example here. So this one, again, it's the heartbeat because we're trying to find the altitude here. Okay, and so our altitude is w plus 9. It's all together. So we have 8 over w plus 9, which is equal to w plus 9 over 18. So now we do our cross products. So we have w plus 9 squared, and if you do 18 times 8, you get 144. And so now we just take the square root because we want to get rid of that squared part on the w plus 9. Now the w plus 9 is all one piece. The whole thing is being squared. So if you do the square root, you undo this squaring. So we just have w plus 9 is equal to the square root of 144, which is 12. Okay, and so now we want w by itself. So take away 9, and you get w is 3. All right, so that's the heartbeat rule. It's when you're trying to find the piece in the middle. or they give you the piece in the middle and you're trying to find one of the bottom parts. All right, now let's go look at the next part. It's the leg rule. This is called the boomerang rule because the little drawings we're going to make are going to look like little boomerangs. So in this one, it says the length of each leg in a right triangle. So the legs are these two parts here. This side that says A, and then this other side over here on the outside that doesn't have a marking. Those are your legs. So if you want to find the lengths of one of these, you have to do the geometric mean between the hypotenuse. So C is your hypotenuse, that's the whole thing there. And then the segment of the hypotenuse adjacent to the leg. So if you notice our hypotenuse, C, okay, that's your hypotenuse. The altitude right here cuts it into two parts. You have the X, and then you have this other part over here. So if you notice, A is connected directly to X. So that's the adjacent part, okay? So the way you set up your formula, you do C. C is your whole hypotenuse. So you have the X and you have this other section, you got to add those together. So it's your total hypotenuse. Okay, your total hypotenuse. A, that's the leg that you're trying to find. And then X is the part of the hypotenuse that's connected to your leg. So now, and what this is, so we have A, and we're comparing it to C, so the whole thing. So there's one boomerang. And then you have A, and you're comparing it to X. So there's your second boomerang. So if you draw your two boomerangs, you know how to do your ratios, your proportion. So what is the value of Y? All right, so Y. We're going to compare Y to the whole hypotenuse. The whole hypotenuse is 9 plus 3, which is 12. So we have 12, the whole thing, compared to the leg that we want to find. So that's Y. Now we have to do Y, and we compare it to the part that it's attached to. So what is Y attached to? The part that's 9. So we put Y over 9. All right, now we just multiply again. So Y times Y is Y squared. 12 times 9, 108. So take the square roots. So Y is equal to the square root of 108. And we're just going to get the decimal of that. So the square root of 108, it's 10.39. So it's going to round to 10.4. And that's it. Okay, so now we'll do this one. Okay, so now we're going to find X. So we're going to do X compared to the whole thing. So you have to do 9 plus 11, which is 20. And then you do X, and it's attached to the 9. So we have 20 over X is equal to X over 9. And now we just cross multiply. X times X is X squared. 20 times 9 is 180. And so now take the square roots. So we have X is the square root of 180, which if you do that in your calculator, we'll just get the decimal. It's 13.41, so it just stays as 13.4. Okay. Now we're going to have to go to the assignment, and I'm going to do some of them with you. So you're not going to have that many to do tonight on your own, because I know it's still pretty new. All right, so circle the ones that I want you to do. So on the front, I want you to do the evens. So 2, 4, 6, and 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. Now on the back, I want you to do 10 and 12. And then 15. The other ones on the back we're not going to worry about. So 10 and 12 and 15. So let's go here. Number 2, that matches exactly with the notes. You're just finding the geometric mean. That's the first section of your notes on the left-hand side. I want to set up these ones with you. So for number 4, we're trying to find the altitude here. So we're going to use the heartbeat rule. So we have 12 to x is equal to x to 8. So we multiply. So x squared is equal to 96. So we take the square root and the square root. So x, take the square root of 96. You get 9.79. So what does that round to? 9.8. Okay. All right, now number 6. Number 6, you can see we're trying to find these legs here. So we're going to use the boomerang rule. We have to do it twice because we have to find x and y. So first we'll find x. So we'll compare x to the total hypotenuse. So we have to add the 4 and the 6. So the total hypotenuse is 10. And then we have to compare the x to the 4. So we have 10 over x is equal to x over 4. Okay, so we set up our proportion, and now we'll just do our cross products. So x times x, that's x squared, which is equal to 40. So square root. So x is the square root of 40. And so now you guys need to evaluate and find the square root of 40. And that's your answer for x. So now let's go and we'll do y. So for y, I'll get a different color. So again, we'll do y, and we'll compare it to the whole thing. And we'll do y and compare it to 6. So 10 over y, so the whole thing to the leg. And now I have the leg over the part it's attached to, which is 6. So do your cross product. So y squared is equal to 10 times 6, which is 60. So take your square roots. So y is equal to the square root of 60. And you guys can figure out that decimal. Okay, now number 8, you can do on your own. You're going to have to use both rules. First, you do the boomerang for x. Or I'm sorry, the heartbeat for x. And then the boomerang for y. Okay? Now number 10. This one gets a little bit tricky because the x is not actually on the altitude there. So for this one, you have to find x first, because if you're trying to find y first, that won't really work out, because y you have to do the boomerang, and you don't know what x is, so you can't do that one first. So we have to figure out x first. We can see x, we're going to have to do the heartbeat. So if you look back on your notes, the altitude appears twice in your formula for this one. So what is our altitude? 12. So label that altitude. The 16 is a leg, and this x is a leg. So we're going to have to set this up now. So if you look at your formula, it's very easy. So we put one leg, which is x, over the altitude, which is 12. And then you put the altitude, which is 12, over the other leg, which is 16. And now we do our cross products. So 16 times x is 16x, which is equal to 12 times 12, which is 144. And so now, look, there's no square root that has to be done because this is just x. We want to get rid of 16, so divide by 16. And so then you guys will figure out what x is. So what is x? It's 9. Very good. So x is 9. So now here on your picture, instead of x, we're going to put 9. Now we will use that 9 to do the boomerang rule. So we're going to compare y to the whole thing. So you got to do 9 plus 16, which will give you 25. And then you compare y to the 9. So you have 25 over y is equal to y over 9. And then you guys can finish solving this for y. So y'all don't have very many left to do on your own. You have 12, 15, 8, and 2. Okay, so do these now in class, get them done. We're turning this paper in tomorrow. If you are supposed to come see me for tutorials after school today, you're going to go across the hall to Miss Hardaway. If you needed to see me to make up time, go see Miss Hardaway and see how long she'll let you stay. So if you got questions, I'll answer them tomorrow. I'm going to put this video up on Canvas, so you all should go back and watch it again if you're not quite clear on some of the things. So your homework tonight, finish these problems, start a little bit on the review, not a whole lot. Find ones that you don't understand so you can work those tomorrow, and then make sure you've got this completed for tomorrow, and bring me any of the other papers that you have not turned in. So we're not going to turn anything in while I'm not here, because that's how papers get lost. So just bring them to me tomorrow, and they won't be any more late. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good day. Bye.